Welcome back to the Hive Doctor, your beekeeping mentor. Today I want to touch on a topic that I witnessed mostly coming out of the commercial industry of beekeeping, and that is the topic of adulteration in honey specifically. I'm not talking about the other products of the hive, just honey. We're going to be going over the intentional adulteration and the unintentional adulteration, and how all of us can be much more aware of that so that we are not adulterating the products that we produce from our colonies. And in the end, I want to share with you what I've got going in this jar. So stick around. Welcome back, beekeepers. So as I just mentioned, there's two types of adulteration in the honey industry, and that is intentional and unintentional. Intentional, of course, is going to be adulterating honey on purpose, stretching that honey, making as much as you can so that you can sell and make more money. And I have seen this in my commercial time in Florida because we had so many beekeepers come from all over and winter their bees down there before going off to almond pollination in California. And what I would see was beekeepers trying to get the weight of their colonies just right so that they weren't too heavy for shipping on semis all the way out to California. And at the same time, trying to balance that feed in the colony so that they wouldn't starve along the way. And of course, when they came back, they were also balancing not having too much of that really bitter, non-palatable almond honey in the hive so that they could make orange blossom honey or have them light enough to where they could ship them off up back into Michigan or Maine for cranberries, blueberries, whatever, squash. I don't know what time of year those things bloom up there because I've never done it, but I remember that that's what the guys would say they're going to go do. Well, the part of the issue in having your bees not weigh enough or weighing too much, you've got to give and take. And the way these guys would do it is take as much as they could from the hive, but feed back this high fructose corn syrup, which in my opinion is not worthy of being a bee feed, but it's cheap and that's why it's used. And it's also got traces of pesticides in it that have been okayed for human consumption, but honeybees are so much smaller. It's not okay for their consumption, in my opinion. And though I have fed plenty of corn syrup to bees when I was in Florida, I really had this guilty feeling over me all the time. And I just didn't know what to do about it because they weren't my bees. It wasn't my operation. Now, if I've got to feed my bees, it's going to be a sugar syrup solution, usually with some kind of essential oil mix in there, trying to benefit my bees as much as I can. And I get that there are times when we need to feed our bees. It just happens. Sometimes winter pushes in a little bit longer than what we want. Or sometimes we are coming into fall, going into winter with lighter hives than what we want. And we need our colonies to make it through the winter so they're there in the spring. So that intentional adulteration that I've seen, it is unfortunate. Here in North Georgia where I am, I've heard some of the larger beekeepers in their operation where they will harvest their honey, they'll extract it, and then they will blend it with corn syrup to stretch it a little bit further so that they get paid for more. And so what they end up with and what consumers unknowingly end up with is an adulterated product. It's blended, but I doubt that it even says that on the label. It might say blended, but it's not going to tell you with what it's blended with. And then myself just driving around, occasionally I'll see another beekeeper's apiary and I'll recognize whose it is. And I'll see buckets of feed on their colonies year round. And you know that stuff is going to get into the honey. Now that could happen, that could be an intentional thing, or it could be an ignorance kind of thing. Like they don't realize you don't need to feed your bees year round. And I've met beekeepers that feel like they actually truly believe that you've got to feed your bees, otherwise they're going to die. But that's what a flow is, a nectar flow. It's like it's so much coming in that your bees have excess, enough that a beekeeper can come along and harvest. And when we do that sustainably, we leave our colonies, ideally, with enough food to where we don't need to feed them. And this is going to apply mostly to small-time beekeepers, hobbyists, backyard beekeepers, learning our specific climate, our area, and knowing when it's appropriate to feed our bees and when it's not appropriate to feed our bees. And then we need to make the choice of what we're going to feed them. I have learned through the years when to feed my bees if I need to. It's not always the case. It's definitely not the case most of the time. And I've also learned when to feed them to where it will not affect my honey, so it won't be an adulterated product. Because I pride myself in my operation, and I teach this to my customers, in that I produce a high quality honey, something that's raw, never heated. It's wild cultivated because they don't pollinate any crops, so they're not sprayed. They're just collecting nectar. They're bringing it back to the hive. I'm putting it in a bottle. There's the least amount of interference in that as I can possibly do, especially with mite treatments. There are chemical mite treatments that are okayed for the industry, for us beekeepers to use, but not during a nectar flow. There are beekeepers that keep those strips in during a nectar flow. And guess what? That stuff's going to make it into the honey. When we would sell our honey to bottlers in Florida, they would test it for biological percentage, like, and what that means is, and I don't remember the right term, but pretty much what that is how much brood are some of these beekeepers extracting with their honey. And some of them was pretty high. They would just take the brood, the honey and all, send it through the uncapper, bottle it, or not bottle it, but put it in the barrels, and then ship it to the bottlers for sale. And if it was too high of a percentage, those bottlers could refuse to buy it. The other thing they would test for is the chemical count, whatever they call that, because chemicals get in the honey, and that's a lot of reason that the bottlers pasteurize their honey. They got to kill this stuff, and by then you just have a really tasty sweetener. There's nothing good left in it. All the vitamins have been killed. So I like to produce a honey that people feel good buying. They know it's still a live food. It's got those enzymes intact, those things that ideally boost our immune system. And so that's how I market myself as a beekeeper, with certain practices and methods, so that these guys feel really good about the honey that they're buying from me. And it's taken years to get to this point. I've had a lot of learning, a lot of guilt that I've had to get over, but also even more than that, I've had a journey on creating an operation and an idea, a brand of something I can be proud of and market and feel good about it. So I'm sure you guys get what I'm trying to say. So these things are going to help us not only decide how we want to operate, but ultimately it's going to determine the type of beekeeper that we want to be. It will define us. It will define our operation. And the people that know you, people that know me, they're going to be drawn to that. People that want cheap things are going to seek out cheap things. People that want high quality are going to seek out high quality. And so that's the end of my rant on the types of beekeepers that we are becoming based on the methods that we use, overcoming our ignorance and just learning the bees and the environment that they work in better, so that we don't have that lack of quality in what we produce. And so now I'm going to show you what I promised at the beginning of the video. This half gallon, this is a gallon jar. I've only got a half full. This is an experiment that I've decided is successful, so I'm going to be making more of this. So before I tell you exactly what's in this, it is honey, I'm going to tell you what brought it about. I wanted to come up with a different flavor of honey and try my hand at infused honey. So I went around collecting sassafras root, fresh root. I cleaned it, chopped it up, put it in here with half a gallon of my Southern Appalachian wildflower, which consists of tulip poplars, wild cherry trees. We've got a couple different varieties here. Something else I can't remember. And then blackberry blossoms, especially this year. Man, all those things were blooming at the same time. The bees blended them together so well. My wildflower is highly sought after in my area, and I'm really happy about that because the bees do a great job. It ends up becoming this really fruity flavor. It's deep, it's rich, and I love it. So anyways, I have been infusing my wildflower with this sassafras root, and my goal, from some of the advice I've gotten from the local herb store here at the Folk Collaborative in McKaysville, Georgia, the store manager there told me I should infuse this for about 1 month. indirect sunlight. So I'm not heating this on the stove, getting it too hot. I've let nature do its thing. I'm using the rays of the sun. And so I've had this sitting on top of a beehive for almost a month. 5 more days and this will be ready to filter and bottle. But I'm not going to be bottling it for sale on my website quite yet. It will be available in limited quantities at the end of September 2024. But I'm going to first use this to enter the honey show for the GBA here in Georgia, and that's the Georgia Beekeepers Association. All right, so part of the criteria when you enter a honey show is that you've got to fill 3 1-pound glass bottles, and these glass bottles have to be of a specific style, Queen Line or Classic. I got Queen Line from Bob Benny's store just outside of Lakemont, Georgia. I got 2 cases of those so that I can have some nice honey entries for several of the categories that I'm going to be entering in at the GBA. I'll be representing myself under Bee Native Honey and also my club, the Beekeepers of Gilmer County. And I'm going to be taking this and bottling it in 1 entry. Again, remember, is 3 1-pound bottles. So I'll be filling those 3 1-pound bottles. When this is ready in 5 days from now, I'm going to filter these roots out, fill my jars with this honey, and get it ready for the honey show. I'm so excited to put this in and try it. It has a very anise-like flavor. If you've never tried that, it's one of those like fall seasoning kind of things. They use sassafras root to make root beer. This doesn't taste like root beer, but it does taste like magic. It's very good. It took about 3 weeks before the flavor really started to become potent. I would leave this in the sun. The sun's rays would do its thing, and every day I'd come along and do this so I could get all of the honey stirred up really nicely and get this honey infused really well. This will be available in limited quantities on my website, beenativehoney.com, towards the end of September 2024. And in the meantime, I'm going to start harvesting some more sassafras root because I think it's really successful and people are going to want to try this. It's very unique. I love it. So much flavor. And in the meantime, when I get to the honey show later this month on the 19th, 20th, and 21st, I'll probably be making a few short videos so that you guys can kind of come along with me and see what's going on. This is going to be my first conference ever, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm super excited about entering a honey contest, winning some blue ribbons, right? And then getting this infusion up and available on my website so that you guys can try it. So with that in mind, I hope that it helps you decide what kind of beekeeper you want to be if you haven't already. Let's try to produce something of quality, not just for our family and our friends, our consumers, but just to help define who we want to be as we go through life. You guys are better beekeepers than you realize. You're doing a great job learning, adapting, continuing on, kicking those mites in the butt, learning what doesn't work. So keep it up. I look forward to reading your comments below, whatever that's going to be. Until then, tell your friends about the Hive Doctor, drop me one of these, and I'll see you in the next video.